Hello, this is R Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between the Artist and Doc Fan. This is played in the final round of the playoffs between, we're in team event number 52. The match score is 1-1, and another game is to be played after this. If Black draws, he puts it in the hands of his teammate to win with White. If White wins, he puts it in the hands of his teammate to draw with Black. That's kind of a little bit of team strategy. All right, let's have a look, see what happens. All right, so far, okay. Transposing into a number of lines, now allowing Queen's Indian, even a Benoni is possible. There's the Queen's Indian. And White plays the more modern 4A3. Playing like a grandmaster so far, both of you. Okay, I know just a little bit about this. I know, I think on Queen C2, sometimes Black brings the bishop straight back. I don't know all the lines, but that's not important. What I know, there's a lot to choose from here. Okay, C5. E3. E3 seems a little bit slow, simply because it shuts in this bishop. I know there was a game earlier in this event before I was doing videos, between Penty and somebody else, I can't remember, Penty63, and it followed this kind of path, and Black ended up going into a hedgehog system and got a really good position, and White just overreached trying to crack it and quickly fell apart. But I know that at some point White played E4, and there was an exchange on D4, and the bishop came to C5 and tempoed the knight, and White just never got going. Anyway, let's see what happens. E3. Okay, takes. Okay. Now at this point, maybe what White should do is play knight C3 and maybe try to get D5 in, because if Black gets D5 in, White's going to end up with the isolated queen pawn, and that's exactly what happens. I'm just trying to see if there's any way to avoid that before we get there. Okay, so bishop D3. It doesn't stop it, but seriously though, if White does play knight C3, it looks like Black can just play D5 anyway. So let's see what happens. Okay, and he gets it in just like he would have. Okay, knight D2. Guess he's planning to take back with the knight and preserve the bishop. Okay, Black castles and White castles. So the game is basically even here. Black still has a couple undeveloped guys, so does White. This is undeveloped. Black can move his queen or his knight and be caught up in development, so nothing major going right or wrong yet. Now, first move that strikes me just immediately is B4. It does a couple of things. For the first thing is it wants to play to B5 and fork those guys. Doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean that maybe Black doesn't have some resources here. That's like I say, my first instinct. Let's see, B4. Of course, Black has some pressure on D4, so if White takes back with the knight, he no longer has B5 as a possibility. And if he takes back with the bishop, I guess and go like this, and it relieves the pressure on D4. But looks like Black is fine here. He just develops another piece, and here's White sitting there with a couple of guys, not even ready to join the party yet. Although this one of the ideas of B4 was to get it on the long diagonal. So let's see what White does. He took. Okay, So now black's actually ahead in development. There were some exchanges made which improved the position of the black pieces. So as Nimzovich always said, when you make exchanges, try to do so when they improve the position of your pieces. And conversely, you shouldn't be making exchanges that help your opponent develop his pieces. And that's all in my system. Go read it if you haven't yet. Just looking at the clocks, both sides are moving pretty quickly. Okay, I'm against this move, Queen c4. The reason is, it's been explained in some of the other videos, you don't want to just go oppose pieces and offer to make trades. You need your pieces to work together. And if you just go sit and trade them off every time you get, you're eventually going to be left with a very, very, very drawish game. And if that's what white wants, just offer a draw now. Maybe he did, I don't know. But you've got to be playing for wins when you can, and the best way to win is to keep the pieces on the board. So my feeling is it was just a plain error to go and offer this trade, because it's great if black takes. Maybe you get, at least in this respect, you get your knight to a better square, which opens up the diagonal for your bishop to finally get developed. But suppose black just ignores the queen and develops one of his pieces. Sending rook fd8 just supports the assault on the isolated d-pawn and improves the position of the black men. Let's see what black does. Well, he put the other rook. Okay, so it's a good point to bring this up. Not criticizing rook ad8. We're just going to talk about it for a second. It's an old thing that's as old as chess itself, I guess. It's wrong rook, right rook. Which rook to put on an open file when you have a choice? And it's never clear, it seems, but maybe sometimes it is. Let's see what we can decide. If he puts, I suggested this rook, and the reason I chose that rook rather than the other rook was because the other rook has c8 as a possibility. Now, as it turns out, black's going to double on the open file, so in a way it didn't really matter which rook he played there, but by playing the f rook to d8, he preserves the option of putting a rook on c8, because we don't know exactly how white's going to react to all this, and there might be a reason for wanting a rook on c8. So, nothing wrong with what he did, but the question of right rook or wrong rook is kind of answered. I think it was the wrong rook, but it's not overly critical. It just, like I say, it just takes away an option of putting a rook on c8. That's all it does. And we don't know what white would have done otherwise. Okay, so here's white. Well, I'll trade queens, and this just helps improve the position of the black pieces again. Black can put the knight on d5, and that's where you want knights, blockading isolated pawns. Nothing wrong with the rook there. The rook is generally not the greatest blockader of a pawn, but then you're prepared to double, so your knight's your ideal blockader of a pawn. Anyway, he took with the rook, which is perfectly fine. You're going to be doubling. So this, the way the game turned out, black is exonerated from playing the wrong rook. Okay. Knight b3. Now this, it seems now that white's just going into defensive mode. Look how far behind he is in development. Okay. The king side matches from the f-file over, but look at the rest. Okay, the black bishop is at least developed, the white bishop isn't, and the black rook is seized a very important file, and the white rook still is out of play. Plus, it's black's move. Now, this knight on b3, it's basically a defensive piece. Where's it going to go? It can't go back, and it doesn't want to go back, but it can, even if it wanted. It can't go forward, and it doesn't want to go to d2. It just came from there, so all it's doing is it's serving as an anchor for the pawn on d4. That's all it's doing. So, meanwhile, like I say, black doesn't have a lot of scope yet, but he will. This knight can redeploy so that the bishop can go to f6 and attack on d4. A lot of chances. Black is clearly better here. Okay. Now this kind of seems like an odd move. Let's just reflect a second. Rook FD8 just makes all kinds of sense, because what's white going to do? Well, I guess he's going to have to develop his bishop, and then he's ready to bring his rook over. And rook b5 might be fine. I'm just saying it just seems a little odd, but since we've already said that the knight is a little misplaced there, maybe it isn't odd. Maybe this is quite logical, a quite logical move. Okay, what's white going to do? Either moves it back to d2 or sends the other knight over to d2 to guard it. So maybe it's not that bad. And he sends it back. Okay, so black certainly doesn't want to repeat the position. So what's black do? Okay, good. Gets the other rook on the d file. And now white is kind of scrambling here and figures that he needs to defend that d4 square, so he'll do it with his bishop. But then look how great that bishop is, or actually it isn't, but I'm kind of being sarcastic. The bishop is behind the pawns, and this can happen in a lot of chess openings, and it's generally not something you want, but at least you're solid. Okay, so now black just picks up the pawn, so he's too late. Black just had too much development. So kudos for move 15, rook b5. It worked. Okay, now black's just gonna steamroll white here because he falls apart. So black's not only a clear pawn ahead, he's really well developed. And notice that the white rook is still on f1. Remember when I compared last time, the black rook was on f8? Well, now the black rook is on the open file, running amok. White hasn't done anything to improve his development. He can get a well, he can't. He can't play bishop e2 because the knight hangs. He can kick the knight or kick the rook, but then where does his rook go? The rooks can't come to the open file because black controls it. The bishop is still undeveloped. So I expect white probably played knight f3 here. Makes perfectly logical sense. I don't think going to b3 is really what you want. The knight just gets attacked again with rook d3. So let's see. At knight f3. Okay, rook d6, perfectly fine. Okay, now this is good. Threatened to win a pawn. That's it. Drive me in a good square now. Now black is threatening to play rook takes knight and have two minors for the rook. And I think this move just flat out loses. But black is just cleaning house here. Knight f3 once again is about the only move, and black just has his choice of good plans here. He's a clear pawn ahead. He can push by with a4 and lock up those pawns, and then that kind of cements these pawns as bad because they're on the color of the bishop. You can't go to the seventh rank. But then again, what's white's plan? The only thing white could try to do is play rook c1 and try and do something on the back rank. But I think just a4 here and it's a easy black win. We'll just gradually improve the position of our pieces, make some exchanges, and centralize our king and win. Okay, let's see what happened. Yeah, like I say, this just walks into a pin, and you can't really play e5 right away because black counter pins, but a little maneuvering will take care of that. Knight d7, and then white decides he better double up to protect that thing, but black has too much activity here. Attack the rook, and then put the bishop there. Now there's 3 attackers on it, 2 defenders, and now white plays over here, and after e5 the piece is lost. And there are just a few remaining moves. I'll run through them because the 15 minutes is almost up, and black just ends up winning more material, and white decides that's enough. Well, very good game, black. You did well. You did great. And thanks everyone for watching. Take care.